Hello and welcome. Today we're working on what is a chart of accounts. So I've just set up a simple and sample chart of accounts. And so let me give you a couple of tips on a chart of accounts. It's going to list all the accounts you use in your business or a big problem or whatever. And so you'd have a numbering system. So maybe you have everything that's 1,000 up to 1999 are the asset accounts. And then in the 2000s, it's the liability accounts. The 3000s would be all the equity accounts. The 4000s would be revenues. And in the 5000, there'd be the expense accounts. Now you can do it different ways. Sometimes people put all the cost of goods sold in 5000s and then other expenses in 6000s. Well, come up with a system, and you're going to have a system that's flexible. So you want unique numbers and you want unique names. Only you have to specify. There might be more than one cash account, but you'd have to specify, where the bank is, or it's an operating account versus a payroll account or whatever for a cash account. So let me give you some tips here. So let's say the 1000s are asset accounts, and maybe you would say the first 1,200 or so, the thousands and the 1100s are current assets. So you'd have things like cash, accounts receivable, inventory, supplies, so on. And you'd have unique numbers. So you could search for the account by typing in cash, or you could type in 1010, 1010 would be the cash account. You could find it very easily. Maybe you have long-term assets in the 1200s and the 1300s. And maybe you have intangible assets in the 1400s. So for example, you'd have land, building, and you'd also have, remember, accumulated depreciation is a contra account that relates to the building. In this example, these two go together. So maybe your numbering would be right there together. You'd have 1220 and 1222 or something like that. So you can certainly do it that way. You can have parent and child accounts if you need that, where they'd roll up into the parent account if you want to do something like that. Then here we would have intangible assets in the 1400s. What about liabilities? You could do the same thing and do the 2000s or liabilities, and you could easily have the current liabilities first and then the long-term liabilities maybe with higher numbers. So anything above 2200 would be, the long-term liabilities. Now, if you'll notice, we have gaps in between the accounts because you might want to add an account and you might say, oh, we need another payable account, and we could put it here at in between the 2030 and the 2040, maybe 2032 or 2035, or you could have several accounts. So you want to have a system where it's flexible. It's like you're starting a file system. Essentially what a chart of accounts is a way to file all the transactions. And so what you do is you have some gaps. So you can easily add an account, 2022, and it would go in between interest payable and wages payable. All right, let's keep going. Like equity would be in the 3000s. Here's typical things you would have in equity accounts: common stock, additional paid-in capital, treasury stock, retained earnings, dividends, so on. So that would be equity. So you see the account is in the 3000, you know immediately it's an equity. You don't have to worry about is that an asset or a liability or whatever. So the numbering system is going to be very helpful for you. Revenue accounts might be in the 4000s, and you might have several categories here, and make sure you put those in the 4000s. You could have other ones by division or different ones, and you have several sales revenue account. You could have sales revenue account by different companies, subsidiaries within your company, and that way you can kind of keep them separate. And maybe one's 40/30, one's 40/32, one's 40/34, and it all rolls into total sales revenue. Same thing with expense accounts. We have in the 5000 the expense accounts, and you could have start with cost of goods sold. That's an expense. And you notice all these would say expense. And then you have the depreciation expense maybe toward the end for the building, for the furniture, for the equipment like we had before. Now, I've highlighted miscellaneous expense. Miscellaneous expense is a catch-all if you're not sure where to put it. but you want to be careful and use that very sparingly, because if you put everything in miscellaneous expense, you don't know what it really is, because that is a non-descriptive title. You know what wages are, you know what salaries are, you know what rent is, and how to manage that. You want to reduce maybe your salaries expense, but miscellaneous usually should be for small items that are really unusual. If you like this type of video, I have lots of videos on accounting. So if you'll like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Hey, thanks for watching and good luck in accounting.